Coming up on the official Celtic FC podcast, Scottish actor Liam Harkins joins us to speak about his role as Tommy Burns in the upcoming Tommy Burns story.
Like you say, it's encapsulating everything, the three things that meant the most to him: family, faith and football.
And Paul Cuddihy reflects on the life and career of the Celtic icon.
For I think my generation growing up, Tommy Burns was a hero.
This is the official Celtic FC podcast.
Hello and welcome to the official Celtic FC podcast with me, Matthew Campbell, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by my esteemed colleague Paul Cuddihy today. Paul, first of all, how are you?
I was actually looking about to see where that esteemed colleague was, to be fair, but very well.
Well, before we crack on and get chatting to our guest, and which I'm sure is going to be a really interesting episode today, I want to just ask you first, I've heard you speaking before about how the centenary season is your standout season as a supporter. It's the one that you reflect on most fondly. So I was just wondering, why is that? Why do you look back on that season in particular with such fond memories?
I mean, it was a special season, obviously, for the club. It was a birthday, and to win the double that season it was really special. Big Billy had come back, he was the manager, there was just a lot of great players there. For me, it was kind of almost felt like not quite on the cusp of, so I was about 21, 22, not quite on the cusp of adulthood, but on the cusp of doing grown-up things like getting engaged and getting married and having families. So at that time, I was, the centenary season predates all that. So for me, it was like when, Celtic and going to games, everything was the be-all and end-all, and there was nothing else that vied for my attention or mattered. And it was just so special, and just the way that we won that season, that that kind of never say die attitude, and the games that we won where it looked like we were going to lose, and rescuing points and winning cup ties, it was incredible.
It's sort of one of those seasons I think people look back on, and it sort of encapsulated everything that we love about the club, the spirit, the late winners and so on, like you were saying. I suppose it's kind of fitting as well that we're chatting a little bit about the centenary season today, given our guest, who I'll introduce now, because of course usually on the podcast we have players or ex-players, but sometimes we like to do things a little bit different, and today we're joined by Liam Harkins, who's the star of the Tommy Burns story, which is returning to the King's Theatre in July for the second time. Now, Liam's acting career so far has seen him take to the stage across the UK and receive multiple Best Actor nominations at several film festivals. And in his latest role, Liam will be portraying one of the Carlton's favourite sons and an icon of Celtic Football Club.
Jim, you don't realise how much I wanted this. When people look back 100 years from now, I'll be in the team that done a double.
Why do you leave it so late? You left it so late again.
I'm going to get entertainment for money, Jim.
What is so special, Tommy, about this Celtic support? What do they mean to Tommy Burns?
What's so special about them right here, Jim? Just right up there, that's what's so special about them. They're there and they're always there. And God bless every one of them.
Liam is, of course, portraying the great man Tommy Burns on stage, and we're obviously delighted to have you here with us today, Liam. How are you looking forward to taking this show back onto the stage?
Oh mate, every time I get the chance to do it, I have to pinch myself. I really do. Thankfully it's one of those shows that, from what we can gather, the people that are coming back to see it again this year are people who've seen it at least once or twice already. So it's a show that, thankfully, with people involved with Celtic or people who've grew up watching Tommy Burns, and it's resonating with them, which we're all thrilled about. So to get the chance to do it again, to walk in the shoes of the great man, I'll never stop pinching myself for that. Yeah,
it must be an absolute honour. Like you say, you have people who will be coming back to see it for a second time. I was having a little read earlier, just sort of some of the descriptions online about the play, and one that stood out to me, it said, "This is not a football play. It's a play about an amazing man who happened to be a footballer. It covers the three items he cherished above all else: his family, his faith, and his football." Do you feel that, when you're speaking to some audience members after the show, or you're hearing feedback, I'm assuming that's coming across, that people are looking at this as a portrayal of a man rather than a portrayal of a football player?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's obviously the title is the Tommy Burns story, but it's very much it's just as much about Tommy and Rosemary, his wife Rosemary. It's about their story over the course of the years, and there's only 2 scenes within the film that is set in a football setting. You have the 88 Cup final on the pitch, doing the iconic "they're there and they're always there." You have that on the pitch, and then you have his team talk ahead of the 95 Cup final against Airdrie. But everything else is either within the family home or in the church. So it's, like you say, it's encapsulating everything, the 3 things that meant the most to him: family, faith and football. And I think that from when we get chatting to people afterwards, it's actually because they know all the stuff that happens within the football. Like, they've seen, I'll never be able to act out that scene on the pitch after the 88 Cup final than actually watching the footage of himself. So it's all the other stuff of, the conversations that he was having with his wife as he's being offered the Celtic job, or as it's looking like his time as Celtic manager is maybe coming to an end, and getting a feel for what he was feeling at that time. I think that's the stuff that people are really taking after they see the show.
Because one of the things, I think you kind of touched on it, and it's always been a thing for me that there's very little good football literature or even things portrayed on the stage or screen, partly because they're trying to tell the story of what happens in the pitch. And to your point, Liam, that's impossible to portray. But what I think is brilliant about this play is it is a human story.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was lucky enough to see that, when the first performance at the Kerrydale Suite. It was a really emotional night, actually. And I know, like, Tommy's family were there. It was packed. And as fans, it was really emotional. I can't even begin to imagine how that must have felt for you, because it's quite a big thing on your shoulders, because you're portraying somebody that we all love, and you're having to do that with real honesty, and which you did. It was amazing, and I thought it was a really, really moving night.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it is overwhelming, and I don't kind of like suppress those feelings. You know what I mean? Because I'm playing, and that's probably the better answer to your question. When we're rehearsing it, I have to keep constantly reminding myself that to not play the legend, if you know what I mean. Don't try and play the hero, because that's too hard to do. So it's just playing the man as best I can, because I feel like you're never going to be able to hit the heights of what people have got in their mind. So all I can do is just play each moment as best as I possibly can. And with that, when you came to see it in the Kerrydale, I think it was just an overwhelming sense of relief that it went down well with people, because you knew it was going to be. There's some bits in there that is really funny because he had an amazing sense of humour. There's bits, when he breaks into song, that's going to get the crowd going. But obviously, by the time that the play's coming to a close, it obviously is tear jerking. I have to sort of like have a bit of a disconnect, because I get really emotional during the rehearsals, and even when we're doing the read through, I'm fighting back tears, but I have to kind of stay focused on the task at hand.
It's an interesting. I was there. I was also there that night in the Kerrydale, and your description of it, Paul's perfect. And it was an emotional night, and just what you're touching on there, Liam, you see that sort of pressure, the responsibility, I suppose, that comes with depicting someone of the standing of Tommy Burns as an actor. Is that the sort of, I guess, task or challenge that you cherish, or that you relish? Sorry.
Totally. I mean, I sort of said this, and I definitely don't say it flippantly, that I don't think I'll ever play a part that means as much to me. I think that's kind of impossible, because it's playing somebody, playing Mr. Celtic, and that's part of my DNA, growing up my entire life a Celtic fan. And, playing somebody that is just, he epitomises everything that's great about Celtic Football Club. So to have that opportunity to do that is, it's I keep saying it is overwhelming, but the best way I could have put this, if I got a part that I was playing Hamlet at the Old Vic down in London, anybody within the acting community would be like, oh, that is incredible, that's amazing, good for you. But if I told my family, my friends, and everybody connected to me, they would just be like, brilliant, good for you, that sounds good, hope you have a good laugh doing it. But then when I told my my dad, my mum, my dad, my brothers, everybody in my family. Oh, by the way, I'm playing Tommy Burns in the Tommy Burns story. Everybody just lost their mind when I said that. And normally they're not that, well, they are, I don't want to slag them off. They are fussed about coming to see the stuff that I'm in. But when I told them that I was doing that, they were like, oh, when are tickets on sale for this? I'm definitely coming to see that. So it's just an amazing honour to be able to get the chance to do it. Yeah,
it's something that I never really even thought of as well, because
do you not find, you're right about that thing, it's like it's part of our DNA, but did you not find that when you started working here?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was the same. Like my family thought it's the only job I've ever had in my life. My kids actually thought I was quite cool. For 5 minutes. But
no, totally. And Liam and I were actually speaking about that on the way up here to the studio today. Just that sense of walking out the tunnel or being at the side of the pitch at Celtic Park, and it's the biggest place in the world, because it stretches far beyond the four walls of the stadium, which is something, of course, which you're experiencing every time you step on that stage, portraying Tommy. Paul, obviously, you're talking there about having worked here through the years, and I'm sure through those years you've been fortunate enough to speak to and be in the company of Tommy Burns before his sad passing in 2008. I wonder if you could give us an insight into what it was like as a man to deal with person to person.
Well, I mean, it goes back to that idea of sometimes people caution you against meeting your heroes, because for me and for I think my generation growing up, Tommy Burns was our hero for a variety of reasons. One, as Liam said, he epitomised everything that we thought was great about a football club. And even the way he played in the best traditions of Celtic. For me, as a kind of a young man, a young West of Scotland Catholic, he was also, again, he was somebody who portrayed his faith in a most really positive way, and I think that was inspirational. So then when you meet him, you're always slightly apprehensive, because you just because you're meeting somebody that you've always idolised. But I think like everybody who ever came into contact with Tommy and then MD in this club, he was down to earth. It didn't matter who you were and what position you occupied within the club. He chatted to you as if at that moment in time you were the most important person that was there, and he just gave you, if you were chatting to him, he gave you time. He wasn't looking to, sometimes you meet people who they're always looking in the room for the somebody who's more important or more that they want to talk to. You never ever got that impression, and that I think that would be across the board. They would wander through the office, and I'm guessing it would take him forever, because he would be stopping at everybody's desk, because everybody knew him as well. And we all we work here and we love the club, and that was the same for him as well.
Yeah, and of course he's his famous line about being a supporter who got lucky, and just from sort of things that you've said, through the years, Paul, or things that you've read or whatever, Tommy Burns seems like the kind of person who just adored absolutely everything about this club and being a part of it. And he was loved, obviously, in equal measure by the people who follow this football club. But for you, Liam, we've touched on it already. The performance as Tommy Burns is superb, and hopefully, people will certainly come along and see the play at the Kings. But as you're preparing for a role like that, you've spoken about the pressure, but what sort of research and work went in to the preparation? Yeah,
it was just watching as much footage on him as I possibly could, and thankfully he was a man with quite clear physical characteristics. The way he would sort of like lick his lips, or he would purse his cheeks out at certain times, and just the way that he spoke as well. Like, I think I've got a more sort of higher pitch voice than what Tommy naturally did, so it's just realising how I differ in those ways, and realising what I need to do to make myself match up to him a bit more. And to be honest, we were so lucky in having his eldest son Michael be involved in the rehearsals, and he would be in and he would just give little certainly not in any way where he was constantly saying, just every now and then for the most part he would just sit back and watch, and then every now and then he would just offer a little something that just made it more real for all of us. Probably the best example that we've got of that is as the cancer's starting to develop, he there's a stage direction where it just says Tommy scratches his leg, and then when we were doing it in rehearsals, I was like just scratching my calf, and then Michael was watching the scene and let the scene play out, and then afterwards he just sort of went like that to me. It was his left thigh was the one that he was scratching, which, you know what I mean, like I'm sure if I did it, everybody that came to see the show, nobody would have really picked up on it, but he just offered a little thing where it was like, okay, well, the most important people that are going to come and see this play is Rosemary, Emma, Jenna, Michael and Jonathan and the rest of the family, and I wouldn't want to do anything that would throw them out of the story and be like, that's not real. So he was fantastic in offering little things to just help me get closer to playing his dad. Yeah, but I mean, it's the best job in the world, being able to watch all of his interviews and just anything I could about the man, read the books about and watch the documentaries. I absolutely relished it.
Because I was wondering as well, you know, I've been lucky enough to meet Rosemary and the kids as well, and they're just the nicest, loveliest people you could ever meet. And obviously we wondered what it felt like for them to see their dad portrayed on stage, but from your point of view, particularly in some of those that intimate performance at the Kerrydale, but even in the Kings, is an added pressure knowing that they are in the audience, and first and foremost you're wanting to do them proud. Yeah,
totally. I mean, certainly I'm feeling the nerves more when I know that they're in, but as you said, and it wouldn't come as any surprise to anyone how nice a family they are, and we were very fortunate as well. Before we even started rehearsals, the whole company went out for lunch with Rosemary and Emma, and I thought exactly that. I thought, you know what, I might as well just, because if somebody was playing my dad, I would want somebody to do it. So I was seated next to Rosemary, and I just asked her, you know, this must be a bit of an odd thing, like somebody getting up there pretending to be Tommy. Somebody, in Rosemary's case, amazing actress Sarah is getting up pretending to be Rosemary. So I thought, might as well just ask about that. How does that feel for you, seeing this happen? And she just gave like the loveliest answer. She was just like, to be honest, some are just so proud of him. Like, we've had documentaries about him, we've had books about him. This is just the latest thing, and we're still to this day just so proud of him. And I was like, that is just the nicest answer that she could have given, because it then made all of us feel amazing about what we were doing, that we were doing something that the family was on board with. But definitely, unfortunately, Rosemary was supposed to be there on the opening night in the Kerrydale, and unfortunately couldn't make it on the opening night, but the kids were there, and but she made it on the last night in the Kerrydale on the Saturday night, and then again just says the nicest stuff to us when we walked backstage and we're all going back to see them all, and I came walking through and she was like, Thomas, where have you been? I was like, it's just the nicest thing that she was just always so nice with me, and like made me feel at ease in terms of what we were doing. But Michael, I think I could definitely count on one hand the amount of shows that Michael has missed, which is I take a lot of sort of good feelings in that it's something that because I would totally understand from all our perspective, maybe see it once and then that's it. And I would totally understand that. I think if it was let's say if it was my mum or my dad or whatever, I think I would maybe be the similar. But it makes me feel good that Michael's come back to see it again and again and again.
Was there any sort of aspect of Tommy's personality that you thought was key to get across to the audience? You know, because I know there's a hell of a lot of work that must go in from your point of view, from the rest of the cast and the production team. But to you, what were the key aspects of Tommy's personality that you thought, I need to nail that and I need to get that across to an audience?
I think it was kind of what you were alluding to earlier, Paul, with like how personable he was with people. I always noticed in any interviews that I watched him, he would normally, whoever it was that was interviewing him, he would normally get their name in quite early. That was just something that I picked up on, that he would sort of, as you say, make that person feel like they were the only person in the room, or that mattered at that moment in time. So I think it was that sort of thing, that making every person feel important. In terms of the show itself, I mean, it's his sense of humour that if I can get close to nailing that, I'll be pleased with myself, because like he's a very, very funny man and would would say really funny things. We've got clips that go up during the show from his documentary, and people will recite sort of like little jokes that he's cracked in certain situations. Like a very funny man. And then also the way he would just burst into song, like he loved a sing song. So you've obviously got, like, I think Tommy and Rosemary's song was Islands in the Stream. So we've got us singing that, and then obviously Mac the Knife will come in at some point. So it's just sort of, that's not necessarily something that I'm desperate to get across, but it's aware of the fact that you'd very often just break into song.
Brilliant.
I remember seeing there was a dinner when Tommy was still alive. There was a big dinner in his honour in the city centre.
Yeah.
And he actually got up and just sang Mac the Knife.
Aye.
It was amazing.
Well, that scene we try and recreate within the show. And again, just going back to how nice the Burns family is. So as we were sort of sourcing the costume ahead of the first run in the Kerrydale, I was sort of one thing that I would say I was very specific about was, because again, that's quite an iconic clip for Celtic fans. And it was the tie that he was wearing. It was sort of like a yellow grey tie. And I put up a screen grab of it on YouTube, and I said, has anybody got a tie that looks somewhat similar to this, or can we source a tie that's similar to this? Forgetting that Michael was in the WhatsApp group. And then he just went, I've got the tie in my drawer. So then in the show, I'm wearing Tommy's actual tie from that night, which again, he didn't need to do that at all. But it's when I'm getting the chance to do it, it's pinch me a moment where I'm wearing, from that Mac the Knife clip in the show, I'm wearing his tie on stage.
Tingling thing, actually, isn't it? You know,
aye.
Because like you say, it's such an iconic. I don't need backup music, mate. You know,
that's the one.
Line.
Yeah.
And it is so iconic to every Celtic supporter who, you know, the depth of feeling. It's almost beyond measure, the depth of feeling for Tommy Burns. But I mean, that is quite incredible that you've got the actual tie, and that you use it on stage. I mean, just extraordinary. Paul, we're speaking obviously about Tommy the man, but as you touched on earlier on, you know, Tommy was also an exceptional football player as well. I mean, his stats here, you know, Tommy Burns made his debut for Celtic at 18 years of age back in 1975. It's over 500 appearances for Celtic, over 80 goals, 6 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups and 1 League Cup as a player, and of course we're speaking about the 95 Scottish Cup as a manager as well, which ended 6 barren trophyless years for Celtic. Looking back on his playing career, what are the standout moments for you?
Well, it's funny because, you know, that there are, you know, he's got some iconic quotes about, you know, after the 88 Cup final. He's got the one about, you know, when you put on that jersey, you're playing for a people and a cause. But one of my favourites is the one when he's asked what's his greatest achievement, and he says it was being at Celtic Park for so long, because, you know, bad players don't stay for that many years and make that many appearances. So, because I always think it's like I'm guessing every time he put that jersey on was a highlight for him. But I think there's so many over so many years that it's difficult. You know, there's certain games where he just, you know, he could play, you know, big European games, you know, Sporting Lisbon, Juventus. You know, there's certain games where he was just outstanding. But I just think it's difficult, I think, in a career like that to pick, you know, specific highlights. There's always one, and I see a clip of it occasionally, and the reason it maybe doesn't get highlighted is the fact that ultimately it was a game at Hampden where we lost to Rangers. But the free kick that he took, they flick it over from McClare. It was like, you know, it was just a dead ball, and he just put his foot under it and just flicked it over. And I think Brian McClare ran on and volleyed it. It's a brilliant set piece. It's a moment of genius, unfortunately, because ultimately the result didn't go away. You don't remember it the same way, but you know that, and I'm sure every right-footed player hates it when people talk about the culture of left foot. But there is something, because there's fewer left-footed players, there's something stylish about when they get the ball and what they do with it. And,
oh, definitely.
You know, he was that kind of player.
I'm pretty sure even, you know, Alex Ferguson, I think, has spoken about Tommy before, spoken about the fact, you know, he had all the elements that a good Scottish footballer seems, you know, has, like the craft and the guile to come up with a little free kick routine. Like I've seen that clip, and it is tremendous. You know, it's so cheeky, and it's it's wonderful. But he had that, like you say, the cultured kind of left foot. And that's like you say, it's that old sort of saying that lefties, that always looks better on a football pitch. We also, Alex Ferguson, I'm sure, in an interview that I heard, touched on the fact that he had a bit of a temper as well. You know, he could direct his aggression into a good performance on the pitch, you know, as well as being a great, crafty, skillful player. When you're preparing for the role, I know it's a lot of it's about the mannerisms and the personality, but I'm sure you made time to look back on some playing highlights as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's a few, like you said, just a very silky left-footed player, and some of his, I just watched all of his like Celtic goals and that, but you're absolutely right that they would touch on the fact that he was that sort of like fiery redhead in midfield, and I think particularly playing at that time as well, you had to have that. So yeah, no, I've watched everything I possibly can on the man, and I've seen all these Celtic highlights.
What you know, we were speaking earlier, it's been on stage here at Celtic Park. It's obviously been on stage at the Kings as well. It's gone back to the Kings Theatre. I don't have to ask you what it's like to perform at Celtic Park. I know you've obviously spoken about how special those nights were, but the Kings Theatre is such an iconic venue, certainly in Glasgow, across the UK in terms of the theatre world. What's it like to step on stage there? Incredible.
I mean, it's a bigger house, the laughs are going to be louder, you know what I mean, because there's funny moments in the play. They also get involved more, you know, in the musical moments that happen within the show, Islands in the Stream, Mac the Knife, whatever. So if you're doing it to more people, they'll get involved more. But it's at the end, there's one scene that happens in the church towards the end, and it is the most incredible sight for an actor walking on the stage, because I come in from the wings and then I look out and it's just 1,700 people, and you can hear a pin drop because they're just so invested in the story at that moment. And it's obviously it's very, very emotional towards the end. But what I love every time that we've done it, and it's been no matter whether it was in the Kerrydale or at the Kings, when the house lights come up at the end, between the actors on stage and everybody out in the audience, everybody's just chanting Tommy Burns, because it's everybody, like, it's a tribute to him. We don't forget that. So it's almost like I'll take the glasses off and then I'm a fan, back to being a fan at that moment, and everybody does it, and that's happened every single show we've done.
It sounds just incredibly moving even hearing you speaking about it. But Paul, I mean, as Liam's touching on there, a 1,700 seater, regardless, you know, of the capacity of the arena, here at Celtic Park, at the Kings, wherever it goes, you've got a standing ovation, people chanting Tommy Burns' name. Now, obviously, we're coming up to the anniversary of Tommy's passing. What does that, you know, what Liam's just described, and the fact that this play is so popular, what does that say about the legacy that Tommy Burns has left at Celtic?
Well, I mean, I think, like, for all of us, even whether we were lucky enough to see Tommy playing, or, you know, for younger fans, what you're doing is you're being taught, that's part of the history that's been passed on to you. He's like an important figure, and goes back to what we said at the start. He epitomises everything that is good about this football club in terms of how he represented the club all the time. And, you know, I think it was testament to him as a person that, you know, you could never meet anyone from any walk of life, any opposition, that ever had a bad word to say about him. And I think from the family's point of view, whether it's through the documentaries, the books, this play, it's keeping that memory alive, it's celebrating it. I also think this play and these kind of plays are really important because it's maybe bringing an audience to the theatre and encouraging people to go to the theatre that maybe normally wouldn't go, because they're going because it's Celtic, because it's Tommy Burns, and they're enjoying that theatre experience. And I think plays like this are so important for that, because it just widens that whole, and maybe some people that the first time they were in a theatre might have been to see this play, but then it might not be the last, because then they might have enjoyed the whole experience and they're going to see other things. And I think that in itself is important as well.
No, you're totally right. And Liam, of course, as an actor, you'll be feeling that sort of it's almost like a responsibility, you know, because it could be somebody's first time stepping into a theatre, and you could make such an impact on them that, you know, they fall in love with it, they keep coming back, and the theatre industry continues to thrive.
No, totally. I mean, you nailed that there, that people that otherwise would not go and see a play, go to the theatre, are now coming in big numbers to come and see a play, and I think it's only good. It's great for our industry, and I know there's been some amazing plays. I think if you've got a football setting, it's going to get people in the doors that otherwise just wouldn't go. It's something that we've definitely picked up on, that some people have said to us afterwards, I'd never come to see a play before, but I'll definitely be coming back at some point. So
we had Sean Connor, Scottish actor, on a few months back, who was in a National Theatre play about a football team.
Moorcroft,
that's right. And we were chatting away about, I went along to see it on one of the early nights, and it was packed. It was absolutely packed to the rafters. The audience were absolutely wonderful, and I could hear conversations happen around about me, people saying, I've never been to the theatre before, this is the first time I've ever seen a play, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So brilliant. It's an important thing. It's obviously a really exciting time for you as an actor as well, Liam, because you're of course going to the Kings in July with the Tommy Burns story, but you'll also be appearing in the sequel to Trainspotting, which is on at the King's Theatre coming up soon. So you've almost got a residency there.
It's very, very lucky. I will be doing that this weekend. I playing Renton in the Trainspotting follow-up, so it's a bit different to Tommy Burns. But it's a great laugh. It's by the same writer and producer, David Carswell. He's adapted Irving Welsh's novel. He's an amazing writer. So we'll be doing that again this weekend, and thankfully it's sort of like one of those where it's obviously different to Tommy Burns, but similar in a way that it's going to be a bit of a crowd pleaser. There's just bits in there that it doesn't matter if you are Scottish or you're aware, or if you've seen Trainspotting or whatever. There's just some bits that I'm quite confident just objectively funny in it. It's going to be a good laugh for people. So we're excited about doing that this weekend.
Because I'm curious, for you as an actor, particularly that live experience where, kind of like similar to football, it's, once the curtain goes down, the lights go down, it's kick-off for you, and you have to perform live. But, to the point where people are coming, you may be having to do a run of those shows.
Aye.
But people are only there for that one night, so you have to be on your game every night because you want them to have the best experience. That's a pressure in itself, I imagine.
Oh, totally. Yeah, but it's such a privilege. That's, I always kind of remind myself of that. If there are ever any days where, you're maybe feeling a wee bit under the weather or, a bit low in energy, but people have paid good money to come and see it. And the whole point of being a professional is you turn up, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's a Saturday night and everybody's out to have a good time, or it's just a Wednesday afternoon. You need to give the best performance you possibly can. But I must admit, particularly with these types of shows, and the main example of it being obviously Tommy Burns, just put me down if I don't feel up for going on to play Tommy Burns. Do you know what I mean? Like that would, I'll never ever tire of that. So
how was the reaction you mentioned earlier on about of all the things you've done in your career when you told your family you had this role? There was something special because it's partly who your family is. What were they like? How did they react? 'Cause I'm guessing it must have been emotional for them to see either their son or their brother up on stage. And doing that.
I think I'd like to think they're proud of me quite a lot, but particularly for that, I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and I FaceTimed all my 3 older brothers and told them just to get see their reactions, and they were all just sort of like taken aback when I told them. But it's great as well because I could get their perspective of things, because the first Celtic team that I remember is Wim Janssen's team, so that's obviously just after Tommy. So in some ways I think I'm actually quite lucky in that sense, because if I remember living through the years with Tommy as manager, I think that would have made it more difficult for me to play. There's just enough of a disconnect that I can it helps me to step on there and do it. Whereas for my 3 older brothers, they remember living through those years of like the barring years, 6 years without a trophy. They remember all of that. So I think hopefully they just get into the story, even though it's me up there, they get into the story of, oh God, I remember that. I remember as all this was happening. So thankfully they love it as well.
It's brilliant. I just I'm sitting here with a smile on my face just as you're telling that story, because I can almost picture that reaction, from your family members. Almost, it's up there with if you had been a football player signing for Celtic.
It's the closest I'll get, mate. Yeah, exactly.
You're depicting an icon of the club. It's sensational.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, he is the supporter who got lucky. This is as lucky as I'll get. You know what I mean? Being able to try and step into his shoes. So yeah, I mean, I had one brief moment when I was 10. It's because he said everybody's got a Tommy Burns story, and like you say, he's taking time with everyone. But this was when he was the head of youth development, and I had my uncle. It was through sheer nepotism, to be honest with you. But you got me a trial at Celtic Park, and it was at Barrowfield, and then I remember we were all just sat there, everybody was nervous, and then all of a sudden the door opened and he walked, and I was just like, oh my God, that is Tommy Burns. And I like to think he saw the wee redhead and just came up, and maybe just because I looked extra nervous, people was like, just enjoy it today, pal, just enjoy it. And that's my one brief fleeting moment with the man. Yeah.
Incredible to think that these years later, you're about to step on stage, and this summer once again to depict him. What a wonderful story for yourself, and it'll be something that I'm sure will live with you, for the rest of your life as an actor.
It's one of those things, and I know when I wrote the Tommy Burns book, and you're probably the same as well, that there's a real privilege to it. But if you asked, certainly me, I would rather never have done it. Particularly when we're talking about his anniversary because these things have come about. Because if he was still with us, then he would still be part of the club and stuff. So there's a kind of poignant as well, because
it's bittersweet. Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Because it's like a stab to the heart at the end when you're playing out certain scenes, and then there's a montage that we put on at the end, and again I'm just in the wings. Thankfully I'm done at that point as Tommy, but I'm just wiping tears in the wings at that point.
And which is again, it's just testament to who he was, who he is still, to the support, because everybody knows the story. The ending of the Tommy Burns story, but yet every time you think of it, even now as we're sitting here, there's an emotion to it. But you're obviously doing it so well and with such professionalism and honesty, which is the word which keeps obviously coming up here in the conversation, because the show's back and there's a demand for it. You must have sort of, through the performances, had a few famous faces in the crowd.
Yeah, we did. Well, yeah, very first night we just finished up our tech rehearsals, so that's like getting the mics and everything and all like that sorted. And then Davey, our producer, just went like, right, so Big Angie's in tonight. I was like, oh my God, because it was our first performance. I was like, can we not get a couple under our belt first? And then because we were all expecting that the Burns family was in that night, so that's all I was concerning myself with. And then we found out Big Ange was in. Then on the last night of the run in the Kerrydale suite, I was thankfully that was the night Rosemary came to see it, and I was like, who's that next to Rosemary? And I was like, that's Danny McGrain. And I talk about Danny McGrain in the show, and he obviously gets a few mentions. So I was like, oh God. And Charlie Nicholas was in that night as well. And since then, over the run or over the years, we've had Peter Grant, Packy Bonner, Billy Stark. I'm sure a few names are escaping me at the moment. But what's lovely is that they've all came to Tosh McKinley's came to see it a couple of times, I think, actually. What's lovely is when they all come and talk to us after the show. One, they've loved it. I think they've appreciated what we're attempting to do for Tommy, which is just pay tribute to him. But they'll, again, hopefully it shows that we're doing our jobs right. In certain scenes, they'll be like, I remember that. Like, I remember, whether it's the 95 Cup final ahead of the Airdrie game, they'll be like, that is the sort of the way that he said things, or how he got his message across in his team talk. So it's lovely that they've all come to see it, and hopefully we'll see a few more familiar faces in July.
That's nice, because they're not just his teammates, they were his close friends. So yeah,
exactly. And all of them are great to chat with afterwards. It meant a lot that they all came to see it, actually.
You're sort of becoming a known face on the stage in the Celtic world, because you were also had a few parts in the Celtic story, is that right? At the Armadillo?
Aye, that's right, yeah. Obviously, Tommy Burns, played Tommy. It was like right at the end of the show. Martin McCormick, the writing director, wrote an amazing monologue as Tommy, and obviously taking his famous quotes, but working it into his own monologue that he wrote for the show. So I was playing Tommy Burns, and then I was looking at the other parts I was playing. I was like, Jose Mourinho. I was playing Jose Mourinho in it. I was like, I'm hardly the obvious casting for Jose Mourinho.
It's a Panto Villa, no?
Aye, pretty much. Aye.
I think a ginger Scotsman is perfect casting for Jose Mourinho, to be honest.
Yeah, that was amazing. Amazing thing to be a part of. And again, talking about Martin McCormick, the wrote and directed the show, it's just a hell of a task to try and encapsulate 135 years into a 2-hour show, which I thought he did an amazing job at. But yeah, it was a great group of people to work with.
Excellent. Well, we're going to sort of round up our chat, and for anybody who's watching and are listening, if they weren't already, I'm sure that there'll be a great appetite to come along and to see this Tommy Burns story. Yeah. But to sum it up, Liam, just describe. We're talking there about the Celtic story at the Armadillo, your Tommy Burns story at Kerrydale Suite, King's Theatre. What's that like as a Celtic supporter? What does that feel like to step on that stage and receive the acclaim from these supporters?
I mean, it's incredible to be in front of the Celtic family and perform these scenes that are so embedded in their minds, and to hopefully, obviously in the Tommy Burns case, first and foremost to do him justice, to do his family justice, and but to give them a good time, but to be in front of them all. What I'm very proud about, and why I'm so proud to be a part of the Tommy Burns story, is over the course of the runs, what we've done is raise 50,000 for the foundation, and that means a lot to me. That we're telling a story about one of the greatest people to ever be involved with Celtic Football Club, but we're doing something for Celtic Football Club as a whole. That means an awful lot to me. But to be in front of them all, and thankfully by the time the house lights go up at the end and they're up on their feet, yeah, that's, if I could bottle that feeling, I'd make a lot of money. Yeah,
brilliant. Well, we obviously wish you all the very best with the upcoming run, Paul. It sounds like it's going to be once again totally unmissable.
These nights are it's just a celebration of like a great life, but a great club, and it is emotional, and I defy MD to go and watch that play and not have tears in your eyes at the end, because it is. But that's testament to the play, to the actors, to what you guys do. But it's just a special, we have special Celtic occasions here at Celtic Park, but that, for me, there's very few clubs that can do these sort of things, and that's what makes us even more special, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Liam, for your company here on the podcast today. The Tommy Burns story will be on stage at the King's Theatre in Glasgow from Thursday the 18th to Saturday the 20th of July, and tickets are available on atgtickets.com. So thank you very much for joining us today, Liam. Thanks also to Paul for your company and your reflections on a true icon of Celtic Football Club in Tommy Burns. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Make sure you like, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And all that remains to be said is thank you very much, and hail hail.